These are hydraulic trim tabs. Like many things on our boat, they don't work. I was going to go on a mission to find out why they didn't work and see if I could make them work again. There are two possible reasons why they didn't work. One of them is the switch is bad, and the other is the hydraulic pump is bad. After doing some diagnosis, it turned out that the pump was bad, but the switches were worn out anyway, so I decided to contact the manufacturer and get replacement parts. I contacted Insta Trim Boat Leveler Company in St. Louis, Missouri, and ordered a replacement pump and replacement switches. Basically, the design has remained unchanged for quite some time, so everything was going to be a direct replacement, and I did use the existing wiring because there was nothing wrong with it. All the parts came together, including a little bottle of oil and a tiny funnel. The old wiring harness was color-coded and just plugged in, plus I had to add a ground. I figured I would put new connectors on wherever I could and then just reconnect everything. This switch is $150 for some reason. I guess it's just the type of switch it is, but it better be a good switch. Basically, everything was color-coded, and all I needed to do was connect the wires up to the existing terminals, and they even gave me little spade lugs to put on. This is the old one. As you can see, it was kind of old looking, and more importantly, the solenoids and the pump inside didn't work anymore. As I said, the design was virtually unchanged from 22 years ago, so everything was going to be a direct bolt-on replacement. The trim tabs are little hydraulic cylinders that are operated independently by the two switches up on the cockpit. The pump pumps oil into each line, and it moves the tabs up or down to adjust the attitude of the boat. This is where the old one was located, and as I've been ripping out all the old wiring and redoing everything, it was just one more thing to work on. I removed the old unit from the back right corner, and you can see where I cut the hydraulic lines, and the new one will go right back where the old one was. All of the lines were color-coded with little bits of tape, so I just cut the old lines off the old switch, and then the red one is a little bit larger diameter. That's the main power, 12-volt power that goes to the system. And I was going to put the new spade lugs on and just reconnect the switch to the existing wiring. First thing I did after disconnecting the old switch is I cut all the wires to the same length just to make it fit better when it was installed. Then I used this really cool wire stripper that I've had for years and stripped all the insulation off, and I was just going to put the new connectors on. I don't remember where or when I got this tool, but I use it almost daily. It has different size sharp little holes that are cut in there, and then it's spring-loaded, so it automatically adjusts to whatever size wire you put in there, strips the insulation off, and pulls it away. Next, I was going to install the new spade lugs that they gave me. The two black screws are going to be used later to install the switch in the cockpit dash area. Then I went to put them on and crimp them into place. It's very important when doing any marine wiring to use marine rated wire for several reasons. For temperature, if it's going to be near the engine compartment, and then also for the resistance to salt water and corrosion. Also, whenever you put any connectors on anything, they should always be the heat shrink type. To be honest, I wasn't sure if these were the heat shrink type or not. I think they were, but nothing else on the switch was heat shrunk, so I figured I would try these and see how they worked. This crimping tool is also a great tool to have. It ratchets and it exerts a tremendous amount of force, and you can see it's color coded for the different color connectors. I kind of gave up on the connectors that came with it after this one just kind of cut the wire in half. I have a bunch of the ones that I use for all my other wiring, so I ended up cutting these off, and then I reconnected everything using the heat shrink connectors that I use for everything else on the boat. I bought those on Amazon, and they come in different sizes, and they're really nice to have. Once you get them in place, you crimp them down, and then you can put a little micro butane torch on them or a heat gun and shrink everything down, and it makes a really tight connection. You can see the 3 dots that are on the crimping tool. There's a red one, a blue one, and a yellow one for the different size connectors. And then in the box behind my hand, you can see I have red, blue, and yellow connectors. Those are for different gauges of wire. It makes it really simple to work on. The assortment I have came with spade lugs and butt connectors and all sorts of different connectors. You can also use a connector that changes between 2 different gauges of wire. So one side is a larger diameter than the other. It's really convenient and makes a nice professional installation that's nice and secure. Once I got everything crimped in place, it was time to heat shrink it, and I have a little tiny butane torch, and I'll try not to light the desk on fire, and I heat shrink all the connections down, and it keeps them waterproof. And finally, it was time to reconnect the wiring harness back to the new switches. There's no tape on them, but you can see the connectors are color coded, so blue goes to blue, green to green, red to red, yellow to yellow, white to white. The connector's really pushed on tightly, so I don't think there's any danger of them falling off. And then this is the 12-volt positive line, which I'm going to splice another wire into that and connect that into the main terminal. Here I'm stripping off the wire for the ground. With a boat, everything runs back to a negative ground bus, so everything is all connected together. I'm crimping a butt connector onto a new marine ground wire, and then I'm going to connect it to the existing ground wire that was on the pigtail. I just cut off the old connector and stripped it and put that into place, and then use the heat shrink connector for a nice secure connection. I put the new pump in place where the old one was, and I just needed to connect the existing hydraulic lines. I reused the lines, but they did give me new stainless steel hose clamps. So once I got those in place and tightened them up, it was time to plug in the wiring harness. And this is what the new installation looks like. Next, I needed to route the wires, and I used a few wire ties to hold the ground wire in place and run everything together. First through the opening where the switch goes, and then through the side of the hull to the back of the boat. I installed the new switches and pulled the wiring through and connected the trim tab positive to the positive terminal and labeled it. I also cleaned the old connector off real well and then put some dielectric grease on it. I don't know if it's necessary or not, but I figured it couldn't hurt, especially since it's in a marine saltwater environment. Once that was done, I plugged it in exactly like the old one was, and everything went right together. Next, I had to pull out the little black rubber plug that goes into the oil reservoir and put in the pint of oil that was included with the package. I used the little tiny cute funnel they gave me and then put the oil in. Once all the oil was in, I cleaned everything up and put the little black rubber plug back in place. The whole installation was actually very, very easy to do. And now the moment of truth.